All right, now we take you back to Nasrek's grounds where my colleague Aviwe Mtila is on standby. Aviwe, good morning. We understand that you are actually about to be in conversation with Minister Ndabeni.
Yes, that's the case, Mfundo. That's the Minister of Small Business Development. She just gave the keynote address here, of course, highlighting a number of policy issues and the importance of cutting the red tape in order for small businesses to operate. Of course, another key issue here was access to the market and the exclusion of black businesses. In fact, it's some of what I want to now touch on with the Minister, Stella Ndabeni Abraham. Thank you for joining us, Minister. But we've heard a number of these policies time and again. The issue of cutting red tape has always been there, but it's actually not been done. Why isn't it not being implemented?
Well, I think one of the challenges was the fact that although we spoke about cutting the red tape, we didn't involve all the parties because understand that dealing with red tape takes lots of stakeholders that needs to be involved. And we need to really appreciate the fact that all players understand what's then the impact of the red tape that is there. I'm going to start with, for example, if you're looking at the local government level, wherein people must be able to access permits. This requires local government to review bylaws, including some legislations that they have to say how do they create an enabling environment for businesses in their areas to be able to trade. Because you also look at the timelines that we take to register a business in our country, because again of this permit, whether it's the fees that are paid towards permits, whether it's the area where they are put in, and we are addressing that by working with the with the respective areas. The second component, as you mentioned, on access to markets, again, people have long signed agreements with whoever that is supplying them, and then when you come in as a new entrant, they already tell you that we have a standing arrangement with Stella or whoever that is there. So now we're engaging the corporates directly to say you also have a responsibility to invest locally, and part of that is to ensure that as part of your enterprise supplier development, at least the people that you are on board there must find expression in supplying you in your value chain. And this has been well received by most of the corporates that I've engaged with, to an extent that we are looking at launching the platform next year. The third aspect, of course, is ensuring that we provide enough business development support. People or small businesses do not have access to finances, as we said, but some others, they're not able to be compliant for them to access those funds. And then we looked at the challenges that are there. We said, let's come on board so that we can engage with the different companies to say, what are your company requirements for people to access your services? And as we work with them, then they're able to say, we can establish an academy that outlines what is required for each and every corporate, so that we can share that information through CEDA, our business development support agency, that must go to the other partners that we are working with in the ecosystem. Critical to that is the ecosystem approach.
I want to touch on a thorny issue of exclusion. You mentioned here that we ought to bring in black-owned businesses into the mainstream economy. That will talk of the black exclusion. Almost 30 years into democratic South Africa, why is it that this hasn't been addressed under the ANC government?
Well, earlier on, I spoke of the concentrated markets, wherein I said corporates already have standing agreements, and this is why we're engaging them, because that exclusion talks to the fact that I already have a 30-year contract. Now we are saying, let's work together, bring other new entrants on space, and as I said, it has been well received. We are hopeful that indeed it will really yield the desired results, no matter at what scale, because all we need to do is to make sure that we start from somewhere. But at the center of it again is the fact that small businesses, especially black-owned, do not have enough funding that is provided to them. There's lots of stringent criteria that is set up, including by the DFIs themselves. And as the department, we've made a recommendation to Cabinet that as government, we ought to take a responsibility towards paying for that developmental dividend that we say we want to develop small businesses. There's also funding that they must get, which talks to grants at times, as we also look at the blended financing. And we have made a presentation, as I mentioned. We are engaging with the Minister responsible for Finance. President Ramaphosa did engage the minister to say, at least try to provide about 50 billion rands towards SMME funding. And we are looking forward to building an ecosystem that will be able to utilize that 50 billion rands, because the capacity or the capability again of the department with the other players becomes critical in rolling out those funds.
And while all these policies and plans may be in place, the biggest barrier and challenge at the moment is the rolling blackouts. How do you plan on addressing this? Because there's no business really that can run without any lights. How are you working around this?
We are working, of course, with the Minister responsible for public enterprises and the Minister responsible for energy to say how can we then work with them in ensuring that we tap into whether we talk about the alternative energies that must be able to provide a space and shield our small businesses from all these inconsistencies that we see. Indeed, you go to a small business like that has a guest house, they're struggling, there's load shedding, you can't access certain things. And we have said they, at least when the time comes, there should be exemptions from certain things that must be provided to small businesses, but the energy has to be stabilized. At least the government has a clear plan on doing that. We've seen the steps that have been taken by the Minister responsible for public enterprises, working with the Minister of Energy, because it is critical that those two departments find each other in terms of saying what's the best solution without undermining whatever exists in South Africa whilst you are bringing in new intervention.
Okay, Minister, and of course, parting question, we are in conference, we're expecting the announcement of the top 7 any time from now. I'm assuming that plenary is going to be starting shortly. I'm going to cheekily ask you, uyabuya umongameli, or are we going to see a new president of the African National Congress?
Well, I am a branch delegate from Ward 28, and the mandate that I was given was that I must come here and lobby for President Ramaphosa to come back, because my branch, my region, my province believes that there's lots of work that he needs to continue doing in order to take South Africa in great heights. Therefore, I have no other anticipation other than that.
And the shift that we're seeing from the other provinces, your Northwest, your Limpopo, your Gautengs, will it not have a bearing? I mean, have you been having those conversations, seeing that you've been lobbying as to why they now want to shift? Because they're saying that they support people that support them.
Well, I'm not going to venture into the lobbying processes, but as I said, everybody has the right to lobby and be lobbied, and our lobbying is that President Ramaphosa must be supported, and we have done enough lobbying for that.
Done enough lobbying for President Cyril Ramaphosa. That's the Minister of Small Business Development, Stella Ndabeni-Abraham. Of course, as she gave that keynote address that talked to the policies and the red tape that needs to be cut in order for small businesses to thrive.